I'm Tracy Walker, and today I'm going to be reading my book, The Cards I Was Dealt That Transformed My Life. And today's chapter will be chapter 9, Navigating ADHD. Living with my middle child was like living with two different children. He was the child I was carrying when my husband had his accident. He'd never known his father, never had that bonding experience. He'd always been that little bit trickier. I was aware that you shouldn't compare your children, but he was so different from my other two. And there were times I thought I was going crazy. As the only adult in the house, I didn't have anyone else to talk to and bounce ideas off. I was on my own. As a baby, he wouldn't settle. So many nights were spent trying to get him to sleep. As a toddler, it took him a long time to speak. He'd grunt when he wanted something, and when I didn't understand, he'd become agitated. His sister started speaking for him. When he got older, it was clear he had no fear. He reminded me of his father, who used to get kicked out of church for sticking someone with a needle, do reckless things on his motorbike, and jump off two-story buildings. I'll never forget the first time my son jumped off the first level balcony of our house. My neighbour used to call me out that he was walking along the top of the fence like a trapeze artist, and the pool fence, well, that never stopped him from getting where he wanted to be. He could clamber up and over anything, just like a monkey. To this day, I'm amazed he didn't break any bones. He was different. I knew that much, but I couldn't put a name to it. Year 1 was when the most of the trouble started. It seemed like the phone would ring on a daily basis. There's been another incident. The secretary, principal, or teacher would say, "Can you come down, please?" I didn't know what to do. As a mother, I wanted to help my son. I wanted to protect him and stand by him, but I had no idea what I was dealing with. All I knew was when he lost control, it was to the point where it was frightening. He didn't have an off switch. I recall being called up to the school when he was in year 1 because he'd pulled a boy off out of his way and hurt him. I wanted to get my school bag, he said, when we asked why. Well, he was in my way. I couldn't get to it. In his mind, it was so simple. He wanted his bag. He didn't have a way to process his actions. He just reacted. Another time he became so angry with the boy down the road that he picked up a brick. He was going to bash him. There was no logic, no thinking things through. Something inside him would just snap, and that was it. He was just a little boy. He had no idea of what was going on. The school sent us to the guidance officer, who did a personality test on both of us. "You clash because you have opposite personalities," he said. That may have been true, but it certainly wasn't a useful answer to a mother trying to help her son. Nobody seemed to understand what was happening. Expert after expert ran through different processes, but nobody gave me a solution. Other families who were also struggling would enrol their children somewhere else, hoping a new school would have the solution. I was determined to find the answer to my son's situation myself. though rather than expecting the school to fix everything, my son was a child and I was the parent. I believed it was up to me to find the answer. It got to a point where my son became an easy target for the bullies in the school system. He would react to someone else's behaviour, but it was usually my son who was suspended or got sent to time out. The students were very good at provoking him, and when he snapped, the school would only see the end result. Then he started running away from school. It seemed to him to be easier than dealing with teachers not seeing the whole story. Nobody had the time or the energy to ask the right questions. I knew that running away wasn't the right thing for my son to do, but at the same time I could understand it. I'd been there with my parents and my alcoholic partner. Some things are just in the too hard basket. The victim is often the one blamed. I can understand how he must have felt being seen as the person at fault for everything that happened. Every day I waited and wondered, what next? Who will he hurt? Or what will he do today? Every time my son found himself in a situation, I was called up to the school. It was extremely stressful, and I knew I had to come up with a plan. I really was flying blind trying to figure out all this on my own, but it was important for me to do this. The main problem was that my son was aggressive. He would just snap in the blink of an eye. The nearest bystander would be the recipient of his anger. And it didn't matter who it was, teacher, student, family. It took a frightening incident at home for me to finally seek outside help. My son would lose it over what most people considered to be the smallest of things. But to him, they weren't small. One of these days, he had escalated to a point where he was out of control again. It was over something minor to me, but major to him. Suddenly I found myself pressing him up against a wall with my hands around his throat. I had no idea what happened. I was horrified. I rang the GP immediately and got straight in. If you don't find something wrong with my son, I said to the doctor, then he's going to kill me or I'm going to kill him. I was completely numb. Thoughts ran through my mind. What if I'd hurt him? Was I a bad mum? He's just a boy. I was supposed to be the adult. It scared the life out of me. His behaviour was becoming more and more volatile, and I had no idea how to deal with it. That much was obvious. It was not normal behaviour. We can go through all the things you've already done, the doctor said, or we can go straight to the top. I was so relieved she believed me. Let's go to the top, I said. The doctor had actually listened to me. I tried to talk to people so many times and nobody had believed me. They'd palm me off with the answer from some textbook or theory study when they really didn't understand the problem. It wasn't helpful. I'd taken a risk by going to a doctor that day, but I had no choice because I knew in my heart that someone was going to get hurt. I'm so grateful my doctor heard me. She gave me a referral to a top psychiatrist in Brisbane. Make an appointment as soon as you can, she said. I made the appointment and explained the reason to my son. He was okay with it, perhaps Deep down, he knew he needed help too. We took the train into the city, both of us, rather quiet on the journey. I was wondering how it was all going to unfold. What would we find out? Was there something seriously wrong? How would I cope? My son was lost in his own thoughts. Neither of us knew what we were about to walk into. Once we arrived, I managed to find our way out of the station and to the building that housed the psychiatrist's office. My son said nothing this whole time. As we stepped out of the lift, he looked up at me. "It'll be okay," I said. I hoped I was right. We needed answers. The office was empty when we walked in. It wasn't elaborate or fancy, but it was nice, cozy and welcoming. We sat and waited in silence. I knew enough not to ask my son random questions or try to engage him in conversation when he was like this. Doing that would set him off. A door opened and a man stepped out with another person. He nodded in my direction. "I'll be with you shortly," he said. It felt good to be acknowledged after he'd made an appointment for the other person and they'd left. The psychiatrist turned to me again and introduced himself. "Please come in," he said, opening the door for us. I walked through and thankfully my son followed. "Now," the psychiatrist said once we'd all sat down, "tell me what's been going on." He had a friendly face, serious but open. I felt like I could trust him, while my son sat, quiet, with his head down. I explained what had been happening, the behaviours, my fears, everything. The psychiatrist listened. Then he explained what we were going to do moving forward. Tests, assessments, diagnosis. The first thing we had to do right then was answer a questionnaire. The psychiatrist stayed in the office with my son and I went outside to the waiting area to fill in my sheet. It was tick and flick, multiple choice. There were questions about personality, sleeping habits, reactions to a range of situations. Then the psychiatrist said we'd be sending my son for a range of tests. They designed to help us get clarity about what was going on. They'll also eliminate other things. One of these tests was an EEG. They put a weird-looking cap on my son's head and connected wires to it. It's to check his brainwave activity, they said. I was so proud of my son. He did everything he was asked to do. While we were talking, he sat quietly and played with his bum bag. This bag was like his security blanket. He wore it everywhere he went and didn't allow anyone to touch it. Even if we were going out somewhere that required my son to be dressed nicely, he still had to have his bum bag with him. He tucked it in under his shirt. The bag was filled with items he'd collected, stones, sticks, and even the tabs of shopping bags at the checkout. I never saw him pick these items up, but his bag was full of them. Obsessive compulsive disorder, the psychiatrist said. OCD. The tests went on, but that was fine. I saw it all as a process we both had to go through to get the answers needed to help my son. Once the tests were all done, we had to wait weeks for all the results to be collated so a diagnosis could be made. It felt like forever. Then finally I got the call from the GP. "The results are back," she said. "Let's get you in and talk about them." On the drive over to the doctor's, my son was very, very quiet. We both were. Again, we sat in the waiting room in silence. When our names were called, we walked in, both of us a bit hesitant. I had no inkling of what the outcome would be and what it would mean for my son, for both of us. Take a seat, our doctor smiled, warm and welcoming, as always. She had a thick wad of papers in front of her, which she shuffled through as she talked. She went through each of the tests and explained the different results. Then came the one result we'd been waiting for. He has severe attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, she said, ADHD. I'd heard of it, but didn't know much about it. She explained about the different levels. He was below the lowest line, she said, pointing to a graph here. I had no idea what it all meant. I was just relieved to finally have a name for what was going on. It wasn't until later, after we got home, that it hit me. What now? At our next appointment with the psychiatrist, he gave me a stack of information to take home and read through. There was a lot to take in, but I wanted to know more, so I did lots of my own research as well. We'd been told we had a choice of two medications, Ritalin or dexamphetamine. Both were very restrictive medications and both had side effects that were rather scary. I wanted to make an informed decision. Restricted medications have to be authorised by the government in Canberra. The patients are closely monitored to make sure they are only taking what is prescribed. Not knowing anything different, I trusted the professionals and accepted the direction of the psychiatrist. He put my son on dexamphetamine tablets, the one with the lesser side effects. I was given all the known information about this medication, including the strict rules and regulations about its usage. I recognised that the dexamphetamine calmed my son down, but there was so much more to it. You can't give a child a tablet and think everything will be all right. I didn't feel comfortable just leaving it at this. I needed to find out as much as I could about ADHD. There had to be more to all of this. I asked lots of questions. What causes ADHD? Is it hereditary? Was it caused by the stress I was under when I was pregnant? Then I had. Even if I knew the cause, was this going to change what was really dealing with right now? The answer was a resounding no. The most important thing was finding out how I could help my son to succeed without being solely reliant on restricted medications. After further research and discussions with my son's doctor, I came to understand that the role of the medication was to calm my son's aggression so he could focus. Knowing this gave me the opportunity to explore strategies and techniques that worked for him. It was a trial and error process, as so little was known about ADHD in the 80s, let alone alternative treatments for it. I approached the school to see if they'd be willing for us to work together to help my son. They were. I'd been attending a group called Tough Love. The main thing this group taught us was that we needed to support each other. It taught us to listen and gave us permission to be heard. Essentially, one parent would share their story. We could vent, we could get out, whatever it was, while the others would just listen. Then the parent who'd spoken would be given a zipper. This meant they needed to sit quietly while the other parents suggested strategies to try for a week. From the suggestions, the parent could then select one or two strategies they were willing to trial the following week. I asked the school if they were willing to try something similar. Every time my son got himself into a situation, we'd bring in everyone involved in the incident, including teachers and students, basically anyone who was affected by my son's behaviour. We'd have a meeting where we'd all come together, students, parents, teachers, deputy principal, everyone had the opportunity to speak without being interrupted. The school would say what their concerns were and what they needed. Then it was our turn, me, my son. Over time this worked well. Eventually this process helped my son see the bigger picture and understand how his choices contributed to the situation and related to his ultimate punishment. He was able to understand the core issue and could see who his actions affected and how. It didn't end when he came home. I had him write about what happened in as much detail as possible. He began to see, and more importantly, articulate the impact he had on others through the choices he made. He could also come up with a better scenario, one that would give him the best results. Of course, he still had to deal with the consequences of his behaviour at school, but now he understood why. The school started using other strategies. We came up with a card system, a red card which gave my son the opportunity to be in control of his outcome. It wasn't a get out of class free card, and he knew he was to only use it if he found himself getting agitated. He'd let the teacher know, and I was allowed to go to the office and sit in a specific chair. Everyone knew not to talk to him when he was using his red card, not even to say hello, because doing so would send him even further down that rabbit hole, to a place where he had no control over his actions. The best thing was to give him space and time, allowing the chemical reaction in his body to subside. I also supported time out at lunchtime. It was up to me when that time out period finished, because I was required to sign a letter of approval for release. Ultimately, though, this was up to my son in terms of how much responsibility he was prepared to accept and how well we'd worked together to sort through what had happened. With my help, he started to recognise his energy and determine what he needed to do to pull himself up, because before he crossed that line of no return. The consistency and the repetition of what we were doing, along with the subtle, stable messaging and the processes, were having a positive impact on my son. As a mother, it's all you can hope for. I am grateful to the primary school for working with me and being open to doing things in a different way. However, the constant phone calls and the battles took their toll, and the patience was frequently in short supply. There were, of course, difficulties and obstacles beyond what was happening at school. My other children saw it as him getting away with things they wouldn't have been able to get away with. They complained that I spent too much time dealing with my son's issues and not enough time with them. I understood it. It was a natural reaction. Other parents often didn't get it. I recall going camping with friends. We'd been away with this family many times before, But this time the father said, "He's just a normal boy." Normal? What is that? For me, normal was the raging, angry boy who scared the life out of me because I never knew what he was likely to do. Unfortunately, this dad got to experience normal firsthand on this trip. My son went into a rage over an incident. That dad never questioned my thinking ever again. There was definitely times I was ready to give up. I was trying to finish my own education, care for my kids, keep house, help my son. It was hard work, but my determination to succeed was stronger than my desire to take the easy road. I was just being a mum trying to help her son. I'm so grateful I had persevered. My reflections on that time. It surprised me today how I already knew that the answers to my son's problem came from within inside him. I just didn't have the name for it back then. When he tapped into the power within himself, he started to recognize how much more control he had when it came to those outcomes. Everything stemmed from him being consciously aware of what was happening inside himself. If he wanted different outcomes, then he needed to take control of his life by putting techniques and strategies in place that would support him to succeed. Our thoughts and feelings are the things that help us awaken the answers and learn so much more about ourselves. When reflecting with the psychiatrist about the progress my son had made, he was amazed how my son managed to take control of his life using the tools and the techniques I taught him. We all have this power if we decide to tap into it. The insight and the awareness I've received through questioning myself and my beliefs, along with the alternate modalities I use, astound me every day. I thought I knew where things came from and why I did certain things. I was wrong. Stepping into these deep, dark imprints gave me clarity and understanding about people and where the wounds of our childhood come from. Our subconscious imprints are so powerful. They impact our lives and the lives of our loved ones so readily. How often do you reflect on your standards and values? What life skills are you teaching your children? What are you silently telling your children, or if you're a teacher, the students you work with? Are you ready to take the necessary steps to have better outcomes? And I'll leave you with this quote. The only limitations are ones we put on ourselves.